The finals of the AEW Dynamite Grand Slam Tournament of Champions is set, and it will be Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley in the main event for the AEW World Championship at Arthur Ashe Stadium next Wednesday. What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky Durays right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast, here with my AEW Dynamite review from September 14th, 2022. Of course, the main focus of this show was the semifinals of the AEW Dynamite Grand Slam Tournament of Champions, whatever the hell Tony Khan decided to call it. But of course, we had two main events on this show. Of course, the opening match was Jon Moxley versus Sammy Guevara. And in the main event, of course, we had a rematch from All Out, that being Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson. Of course, it is once again the Lionheart versus the American Dragon. So we got a lot of things to cover right here on the Dynamite review. But before I get on with all of this craziness, make sure to like and subscribe to the Wrestle Havoc podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the Wrestle Havoc podcast is available on audio platforms. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to check out the Wrestle Havoc podcast in audio platforms, it's available on all those platforms. The link will be in the description below. But without any further ado, let's talk about AEW Dynamite. So as I've stated earlier, overall thoughts on this show. I definitely enjoyed the show for what it was. Of course, the main focus was the two matches that will give us the finals of the Tournament of Champions. Of course, the finals are set, in which Jon Moxley will face Bryan Danielson in the main event, which is a fantastic main event to close out Dynamite, but I'll give you my thoughts later on. But in our first match of the evening, of course, we had Jon Moxley facing Sammy Guevara. Now, I'm going to give you guys my quick thoughts on the Tournament of Champions. Overall thoughts on this tournament is that I thought this was a great idea for AEW to do. The reason why I thought it was a great idea, because it was realistically a scenario of them turning chicken shit into chicken salad. The reason why I say that is because of the fact that, AEW has had a lot of drama in recent weeks, of course, the main being the whole drama regarding CM Punk and the Elite and all the suspensions that were going on after that whole tirade that CM Punk had in the media scrum. So realistically, they realistically turned a scenario that was dog shit into pure gold. And realistically, if you think about it, they have used all of this drama to their advantage because their ratings have been going high and high and high. I believe this past week's Dynamite actually did a 1.1, which is fantastic for them. I believe this was the highest number that Dynamite did ever since their debut on TBS, which is absolutely fantastic, I might add. So realistically, they kind of used this to their benefit, and the tournament was realistically one of the main reasons as to why. But again, they turned a lot of things from chicken shit into chicken salad. And of course, this is the brackets for the entirety of the tournament. It's a short tournament, but overall thoughts on the entirety of the tournament itself, I thought it was pretty good for what it was. Of course, Hangman Page faced Bryan Danielson, which was a great match that happened on Dynamite the previous week. Sammy Guevara faced Darby Allin in a relatively short match on Rampage. But overall, it was a great match for what it was. But I will say, I would have had Darby Allin win over Sammy Guevara. I do not know why they had Sammy Guevara win, to be quite honest with you. It would have been much more intriguing to have, once again, Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley, but it is what it is. Then, of course, we now have these two matches that are taking place on the show that I'm currently reviewing right now, which would then lead to the finals of the whole tournament, which would, be Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley. So, in our first match of the evening, we have Jon Moxley versus Sammy Guevara. Overall thoughts on this match, again, I enjoyed this match for what it was. It was a great match overall. A relatively short match, but again, it got the job done. And honestly, who honestly thought that Sammy Guevara was going to beat Jon Moxley? Nobody. There's no chance in hell that Sammy Guevara was going to beat Jon Moxley. Literally, Jon Moxley is their top guy right now. But again, I would have rather had Darby Allin face, in my opinion at least, my opinion, I would have rather had Darby Allin face, Jon Moxley instead of Sammy Guevara, because at least you can somewhat create that unpredictability element. But even though realistically in a scenario of Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley, you kind of know who's going to win that match anyway. But it would have been much more interesting to see that match once again. But the match starts. Sammy goes to the outside, and then he goes back in the ring. Both lock up. We get a side headlock takeover by Jon Moxley. Then Sammy fights off Moxley in the corner. He drives his boot on Moxley in the corner. Moxley then fires back with the King Kong Lariat. Sammy then counters the Death Rider attempt by Moxley. Both then proceed to exchange shots. Then we get a couple of overhand chops, and then Moxley then proceeds to mock Sammy Guevara, which was hilarious. Sammy then fires back. We get a couple of uppercuts, I should say, by Moxley. Moxley then gets taken to the outside. We get a Tompe con Hero by Sammy Guevara after that, followed by the beautiful tornado that he hit over the top rope onto the outside. Moxley then gets sent to the steel steps, and then Sammy drives his foot on Moxley. We go to commercial break, and at this point, Sammy is all in control during the entirety of the commercial break. He tries to pile drive Mox onto the apron, but then Mox escapes and fights back. So this is once we're back from break. After that, Mox then knocks down Sammy face first onto the apron after that. At this point, both are on the outside. Sammy then comes back into the ring at the count of 7. Mox then goes for a series of clotheslines into the corner. Sammy then goes to the top. Moxley then goes for a couple of chops, but then Mox drives his fingers on the back of Sammy Guevara. Then he bites Sammy. At this point, both are on the top. Moxley then goes for the butterfly suplex on Sammy Guevara off the top, which looked great. We get a cover by Moxley and a near fall after that. Moxley then applies the Juji Gatame after that. Sammy then counters and transitions into the Boston Crab. Moxley then gets taken into the corner. Sammy then follows up by an enziguri. After that, Sammy goes for the springboard cutter. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. Sammy then takes Mox and picks him up. Moxley escapes and applies the bulldog choke. After that, Moxley drives his elbows on Sammy Guevara. Sammy then counters the King Kong Lariat and then goes for the standing Spanish Fly, which looked absolutely amazing, man. Sammy Guevara is one insane motherfucker. Then we get a cover by Sammy and a near fall. Sammy then goes to the top, but then Moxley comes up. He hits a release German suplex off the top, but then Anna Jay and Ty Mello, a.k.a. Ty Conti, enter the fray, and they create the distraction. At this point, Anna Jay is on the apron, and then he distracts the referee. At this point, Ty Conti goes for the low blow on Jon Moxley. Sammy actually goes for the cover, and then we get a near fall. Sammy then drags Moxley into the corner. He goes to the top, and he tries to go for a senton, but actually missed. And after that, Moxley then comes in and rolls up Sammy, and we get a near fall. At this point, both exchange strikes. Moxley then slaps him, and then we get a couple of kicks and strikes by Moxley after that. Sammy then goes for the jumping knee, followed by the thrust kick. After that, Sammy picks up Mox, but then Mox basically counters Sammy Guevara and hits the Death Rider. We get a cover, and Moxley advances to Grand Slam, and of course, the winner of Jericho and Danielson will determine the whole finals for the AEW World Championship. Overall thoughts on this match? I definitely enjoyed this match for what it was. Jesus Christ, I have this fucking hairpiece on me. It's ridiculous. That's a nice little blooper to add on this review. I look terrible. But overall thoughts on this match. This was a great match overall. I definitely enjoyed this match for what it was. Moxley, relatively, this was, again, as I stated earlier, this was a short match. But, of course you knew Moxley was going to win. And again, I would have much rather had Moxley versus Darby Allin because, again, you can somewhat create that unpredictability element and kind of create the scenario that, hey, Darby Allin could actually win this match. But they didn't do that because Darby Allin is stuck into a feud with the House of Black right now. But overall, great match. Of course, it was definitely expected for Mox to advance to the finals, but it was definitely the right decision to make. After that, MJF comes out. Yes, MJF comes out. And this was not a bad segment at all. This was actually a fantastic segment. It was a segment that led into another segment, but I'll talk about that later on. So MJF comes out, and then he cuts the music, of course, and talks about how if he wanted the crowd to talk, he would know, and he tells them to keep their mouth shut. He basically talks about Moxley at this point. He says 7 days, Mox. He hasn't slept since they went toe to toe last week. It's because he saw the look on his face, and the look on his face showed that he had no fear, and that pisses him off. He must have him confused with someone else, and there is no podium, and this is not the same guy that was in 2020. Of course, in the summer of 2020, Jon Moxley and MJF faced off for the AEW World Championship, and building up to that match, of course, MJF is referencing the whole MJF 2020 presidential campaign. If you guys do not remember, go back and watch it. It's great stuff. So MJF then states he ain't playing a character. He is walking around tough, and he calls Jon Moxley a joke as all these people referring to the crowd. He read his book and says that it was a real good read. He said he loved the part where he talked about his childhood, and it's basically the same as all these people. Uneducated, poor, white trash, scumbag from the sticks. And he got bullied, didn't he? He got beat down, and he got his bike stolen. When stuff happens, it makes men grow up, basically. That's why it worked for Jon Moxley. They can chant all he wants. He knows Jon Moxley. He is still that scared little boy from Cincinnati, Ohio, and he drowns all of his childhood drama in alcohol like a drunk. Now, some people were kind of debating whether this went too far. Realistically, I do not know, but it's MJF we're talking about, so I definitely see this having like the approval. And, after that, MJF continues, and he says that he beat the habit. He got sober, and it takes guts. He slayed his demons, and here's the problem. His brain is more dangerous than his disease. And it's a message also for Jericho and Danielson. Bad things happen when somebody gets in MJF's way. Then he tells Moxley to take that vacation. Of course, he's referring to because originally, last week, Jon Moxley was actually scheduled to take a vacation, but instead he actually went to Dynamite to cut that fantastic promo, basically putting over AEW. After that, he says he wouldn't want to be winning his AEW World Title because it's his title. After that, when he comes back from rehab, he talked about a demon. It was basically held him over like a black cloud, and he basically stated that everything he earned, he didn't deserve. He told him that it was going to take everything from him, and he's slowly going to find out that he himself is that demon. He is a demon that he cannot slay. And now basically states that Albany, let's get down to business. After that, he basically explains the whole scenario that happened last Sunday at All Out. If you guys do not recall, in the opening match on the casino ladder match, a group of men along with Stokely Hathaway helped MJF give him the poker chip, and of course that guarantees him his shot for the AEW World Championship. And he basically introduces everyone, and he introduces his best friend, and that is his legitimate best friend, Stokely Hathaway. Talks about how he has more talent in his little pinky than every one of these pieces of shit. Introduces Stokely Hathaway, and the group is called The Firm. Then after that, Stokely Hathaway, and as I've stated earlier before I talked about this segment, it was basically a segment that led into another segment. Stokely Hathaway, of course, along with Lee Moriarty, Ethan Page, the Gun Club, and W. Morrissey. If you guys know who W. Morrissey is the former Big Cass in WWE. So Stokely Hathaway cuts a promo and talks about basically these group of gentlemen. Talks about how they sat home and prayed that they'd come to the top of the, come up top of a logical situation. So what happened was he was stating about MJF, of course, how he did not walk out and he almost walked out, and basically saying that they prayed about the whole situation. Talks about how there's MJF's support system, and tonight there's one of those rare times that we will see them. He will admit he isn't a publicist. He ain't no manager. He ain't no assistant. He is a friend. Just a friend who has a net worth to make connection. Everything he's done since Double or Nothing has been, such a con. There's nothing like an old-fashioned blackmail, which is what turns him on. He introduces W. Morrissey and says that he wants to do whatever, and they appreciate him, and he loves him. He then points to Lee Moriarty, and he calls him his brother. And it says, he basically states it's time for this young man to become a star, and he basically wants him to bring honor back to the Ring of Honor Pure Championship. The Guns are not, they're not just boys anymore. They're just men. And after that, he basically states that there's no longer, they will no longer walk in the shadows of their broke-ass daddy. We will take them seriously. And he basically states that they're going to target the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Talks about Ethan Page. Says that he's known this man for 10 years, and they were best friends and bitter enemies. And he wants to represent his country of Canada and will do something he couldn't do anymore. And he wants to win the AEW All-Atlantic Championship, which is currently held by Pac. They are the firm. Run with them or run from them. Overall thoughts on these two segments as a whole. First off, let's talk about MJF. Overall thoughts on MJF. I thought MJF's promo was absolutely fantastic. And it raises questions, realistically, on what is going to be MJF's scenario regarding the AEW World Championship. There's many different ways that you can do this. Now, regarding the tournament, which I'll talk about later on, and talking about the finals of Moxley versus Danielson, realistically, I'm going to talk about how it was a win-win situation. But regarding MJF, whoever wins the tournament is definitely, dropping that title to MJF, whether they like it or not, because MJF right now is destined for the AEW World Championship. It makes total sense, considering the fact that, right now MJF is basically the hottest star in all of pro wrestling right now. And it would be foolish for AEW not to put the title on him, but they will. Again, it's a scenario that it's a situation in which, again, many different scenarios can happen. MJF did talk about, he could cash that in anytime he wants. What if AEW pulls somewhat of a Money in the Bank type of deal with MJF and have him cash in at Arthur Ashe Stadium against the winner of, Moxley versus Danielson? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to build it up even more, probably up till Full Gear, whoever holds the title, either Moxley or Danielson. Let Danielson or Moxley kind of have like a lengthy title reign, and then, of course, have him drop to MJF at Full Gear November 19th. But again, it's a scenario that realistically people really need to talk about, considering the fact that right now MJF is the hottest act, not only in AEW, but in my opinion, in all of pro wrestling, because of how damn good this motherfucker is. But there's no questioning that MJF is going to be winning the AEW World Championship. Now, as far as the firm, I'm absolutely enjoying the firm faction. I think it was a great faction overall, and I think, they definitely built up a bunch of guys and basically gave them their entire purpose in one promo by Stokely Hathaway. Of course, you have the Gun Club targeting the AEW Tag Team titles, Lee Moriarty targeting the ROH Pure Championship, and Ethan Page targeting the All-Atlantic Championship. That's great stuff right there. I absolutely love what they did there, and I love the fact that, in a way, and during the promo, Stokely Hathaway did state that, we're going to be with MJF, but not for long. If MJF doesn't want us there, we won't be there. So it's kind of like, they're like one faction, but they're kind of not at the same time. So I definitely enjoy that, and I love the position that they're putting Stokely Hathaway in as well in this scenario, because of the fact that Stokely Hathaway has been, of course, part of Jade's group, but that really did not go anywhere. So really, Stokely Hathaway kind of serves more of a purpose, which I really enjoy. And not only that, it's going to elevate a bunch of guys. It's going to elevate guys like Lee Moriarty. It's going to elevate guys like the Gun Club, and it's going to elevate guys like Ethan Page. These are all guys that really do need, really that elevation right there, and I think it's the perfect area for them. And W. Morrissey as well. I mean, W. Morrissey, of course, just signed with AEW, and he's going to do great things in the company as well. So overall thoughts on the firm, I absolutely enjoy the firm, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. All right. We got Jungleboy versus Jay Lethal. Overall thoughts on this match. This match was absolutely great in my opinion. I definitely enjoyed the match. Of course, Jungleboy is coming off of what happened at All Out last Sunday, of course, where everybody, quote-unquote, thought Luchasaurus betrayed Christian, but actually the roles are reversed. Luchasaurus betrayed Jungleboy and actually chokeslammed the shit out of Jungleboy onto the steel stage, which would then lead to Christian basically squashing Jungleboy in the center of the ring. But we have Jungleboy versus Jay Lethal. Overall thoughts on this match? It was a great match. Any match that Jay Lethal is in, he will bring out the best in you, and Jay Lethal is that damn good. But the match starts. Both lock up. Both then exchange shots. We get a kick by Lethal, and then we get an overhand chop by Jungleboy. Then he goes for the hip toss countered by the backslide. Jungle Boy then goes for the Escalera, followed by the dropkick on Lethal. Jay then applies the figure 4, and then Jungle Boy counters with the roll-up or the inside cradle. Lethal then counters with a dragon screw countered into a roll-up by Jungle Boy once again. Jungle Boy then goes for the elbow strike, and then Lethal goes to the outside. Satnam Singh then goes for the distraction, but then Jungle Boy's on the top. Lethal then goes to the top as well, and then Jungle Boy goes for repeated rights. Lethal then picks up Jungle Boy and drops him to the top rope. Once we're back from commercial break, Lethal is in control. He sends Jungle Boy in the corner. After that, Jungle Boy proceeds to gain offense. Lethal and Jungle Boy proceed to exchange shots, and at this point, they are both exchanging shots. Both then exchange forearms, and then Jungle Boy goes for a couple of running elbows. He tries to go for the brainbuster, but then Jungle Boy sells his back. After that, Lethal proceeds to gain offense. Jungle Boy then counters the lethal injection attempt by Jay Lethal with the comebacker lariat, followed by the brainbuster. After that, we get a cover by Jungle Boy and a near fall after that. Then, once again, Lethal goes to the top. We get a shot to the back of Lethal. Lethal then goes for the Russian leg sweep off the top on Jungle Boy. We get a cover into near fall. Lethal then misses the lethal injection, but then Jungle Boy goes for the kill switch attempt. Lethal then goes for the combination. Jungle Boy at this point is on the outside. We get a suicide dive by Jay Lethal, and then he takes Jungle Boy back in the ring. He goes to the top. Lethal then drops the elbow drop. Then after that, we get a cover by Jay Lethal and a near fall. Jungle Boy then counters the pump kick into the snare trap. Then Lethal tries to go for the to the bottom rope, but then Jungle Boy drags him back. Then after that, Sanjay Dutt goes for the distraction. You guys know my thoughts on Sanjay Dutt. Look, he was a fantastic wrestler in TNA, but I'm sorry, no disrespect. His promos are annoying as hell. They're kind of cringe to me, in my opinion. We get a near fall. We get a roll up by Lethal and a near fall after the distraction by Sanjay Dutt. Jungle Boy once again applies the snare trap. We get repeated shots to the back of Lethal, and then Lethal taps out, and Jungle Boy wins the match. Overall thoughts on this match? It was a great match overall. I think, we're definitely going to be getting a rematch between both Christian Cage and Jungle Boy in the near future. We just do not know when. I believe currently Christian Cage is injured. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he is. But overall thoughts on this match, it was a great match overall. Again, Lethal, whoever he wrestles with, he will bring out the best in, because Lethal is that damn good. But overall, great match, and I'm definitely excited where they're going to go with Jungle Boy in the near future. We got Hook and Action Bronson training in a video package. They will be wrestling 2.0 on Rampage's Grand Slam, which Rampage will actually be a 2-hour show airing next Friday on TNT, which is going to be great, by the way. Of course, they did that last year as well. Then after that, Alex Marvez interviews this random guy who had absolutely no idea who the hell he was. His name is, I believe, Luigi Primo. He's basically a jobber on the independent team that has this freaking pan of pizza and just kind of spins it around. Ethan Page immediately attacks him, and then Danhausen comes in, and then Page challenges Danhausen to a match on Rampage. So, yeah, great. After that, we get a Matt Hardy video package, and he talks about how Darby Allin loves taking everything to the extreme, and he challenges Darby to a match this Friday on Rampage, which actually I believe already happened, which I watched. It was a fine show. It was a good show. I'll talk about Rampage on my Rampage review. We got Powerhouse Hobbs versus Matt DiMartino, who is a jobber or a local talent, whatever, or enhancement talent, whatever you want to call it. Both lock up. He hits a clothesline followed in the corner. We got a beautiful spine buster by Hobbs. Bro, I tweeted this out after the spine buster spot. Powerhouse Hobbs, his spine buster, and the same goes for Ricky Starks' spear. Ricky Starks' spear and Powerhouse Hobbs' spine busters, those respective moves are clean as shit. Those are fantastic. The way that they, what is the right word? The way that they escalate it and just the way that they just hit the move, it's fantastic. They kind of put their own spin on things, but Powerhouse Hobbs' spine buster is clean as fuck. But, of course, Powerhouse Hobbs wins the match. We get a bunch of We Want Ricky chants and talks about, after that, Powerhouse Hobbs cuts a promo and talks about how all out he defeated Ricky Starks. He says Ricky is rough, and he spent 21 months in the trenches grinding with him, but it only took 4 minutes and 45 seconds to beat him. And the challenge is set and opens a new chapter in the Book of Hobbs. It starts tonight, but what happens, Ricky Starks actually interrupts and comes down to the steps of the crowd. He runs towards the crowds and brawls with Powerhouse Hobbs. Ricky Starks then gets the microphone and says, actually, no, he hits the microphone and hits it on Hobbs, which would lead Hobbs to the outside, and then Starks stands tall in the ring. So it's not over between the two. I definitely assumed we're definitely getting a rematch in the near future, maybe on a future episode of Dynamite. I do not see it happening at the pay-per-view, considering the fact that, number one, we already got it at All Out, and the next pay-per-view, Full Gear, is going to be in November. So my guess is I definitely do see possibly a rematch happening in the near future. I don't think, did they book it for Grand Slam? No, they didn't. But yeah, it was a great segment overall, and I absolutely enjoyed it for what it was. We got Swerve in Our Glory versus the Lucha Brothers for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Now, this match was absolutely fantastic. Now, creatively, even though this match is really good, creatively, in a way, it kind of really did not make sense because currently, of course, Death Triangle right now are the AEW Trios Champions, and you have Swerve in Our Glory, who are the AEW World Tag Team Championships, defending their titles against another set of champions, which in a way kind of makes no sense. Not only that, even though this match was absolutely fantastic, like this was literally the best match of the entire night, bar none. But even though this match was really good, you have to point this out. You had the trio champions get pinned in a match against the AEW World Tag Team Championships. That is beyond me, in my opinion, because of the fact that Death Triangle just won the Trios Championships the week before. In a way, that makes absolutely no sense. But that doesn't change the fact that this match was fucking awesome. This match was great. So, Swerve is in control over Rey Fenix. Phoenix doesn't tag Penta, so these are some highlights of the match. Swerve then sends Phoenix to the outside, but then Phoenix comes back with the heel kick. Penta then tags in. He goes for the Sling Blade. Penta then goes for the backstabber. Penta goes for the Sling Blade on Keith Lee, followed by a thrust kick. Swerve then goes for the springboard, but then Penta holds on. Phoenix then goes for the thrust kick, but then we get a cover by Penta on Swerve. Lee then catches Phoenix and throws him to the ring, causing a near fall. Penta then tries to go for the Fear Factor, but Swerve goes for a right. Keith Lee at this point makes the tag. We get a shoulder tackle on Penta. Then goes for the backbreaker on Phoenix. We get a headbutt by Keith Lee. And then he takes Phoenix up. Swerve then goes to the top for the Swerve Stomp. But then Penta goes for a couple of chops. At this point, Keith Lee goes for Penta goes for a thrust kick on Keith Lee. Followed by a Spanish Fly on Swerve by Rey Fenix, which is absolutely fantastic. And when that Spanish Fly spot happened, at the same time, right after, Penta goes for a fucking Canadian Destroyer on Keith Lee, which was literally the highlight of the entire match. And I know I say that a lot whenever I go through matches, but when I mean that this was the highlight of the fucking match, this is the highlight of the fucking match. This dude hit a goddamn Canadian Destroyer on Keith Lee. You guys know how I think about the Canadian Destroyer right there. And the crowd just goes absolutely ape shit. We get a cover and a near fall. Lee then goes for the power slam later on. We get a cover, and Swerve in Our Glory win the match. After that, the Acclaimed come out. And, of course, their match at All Out was fantastic. The tag team match that happened at All Out was absolutely fantastic. And I've stated this in my All Out review. A lot of people thought that AEW should have called an audible and have the Acclaimed win the match because the Acclaimed were that over. And when I mean they were over in that match. And they still are over. It hasn't cooled down at all. It's only been 2 weeks. But, these dudes are absolutely over as shit. So what happens is the Acclaimed come out. Max Caster's cut my music. He goes for his rap. He goes for the yo, 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 listen. After that, he basically tells Swerve if he interrupts his rap once again, he will beat his ass. And then Keith Lee says that he nut hugs every famous person he knows. And, he says, he basically tells Swerve to roll Lee's ass at New York City. And for next week, the Acclaimed will become the AEW World Tag Team Champions. If they do not, and I mean this wholeheartedly, if they do not put the titles on the Acclaimed next week at Grand Slam, I'm going to be super pissed. because the Acclaimed absolutely deserve that. Like, that tag team is absolutely fantastic. Every time when the Acclaimed make their entrance, I always look forward to Max Caster's raps, because Max Caster is phenomenal at what he does, and this dude is so popular that John Cena posted a photo of him on Instagram. That's how popular Max Caster is. But overall, man, they better be winning those AEW World Tag Team Championships. And I think they are. They will be winning those tag team championships, but again, if they don't win those tag team titles, I don't know what to tell you. That would be a shitty creative move right there, but I doubt that will happen. AEW is not that stupid. All right, after that, Alex Marvez tries to interview the Lucha Brothers. Pac then comes in, and then all of a sudden, he tells Alex to mind his own business. But then out of nowhere, Orange Cassidy gives him a right hand and says, double champion this, and, not for long. So yeah, man. After that, we got Serena Deeb and Britt Baker versus Toni Storm and Athena. A relatively short match and the only women's match in the entire show, which, I'm going to sit here and say this, man. AEW, the way that they book the women's division, in my opinion, is not good at all. I'm going to be honest. I'm not really as invested in the women's division because of the way that they book the women's division. Number one, Thunder Rosa's title reign has not been good at all. And the reason why I mention this is because of the fact of the outcome of this match. The outcome of this match was very stupid because of the fact that Toni Storm, who just won the interim women's championship at the pay-per-view, took the pinfall, which was absolutely ridiculously stupid in my opinion. I do not know why the heels got the win, but they did. I would have much rather had the babyfaces get the win and have Serena Deeb get pinned. That's just my opinion. That's what I would have done, but having Toni Storm, who is your interim women's champion, getting pinned is a dumb booking decision in my opinion, because at this point you just basically not made her look strong at all. All right, so even though, it was whatever. Deeb and Storm start. Both go for the knuckle lock. We get a side headlock takeover by Storm and then by Deeb. Both then go for exchanging holds. At this point, both lock up. Deeb goes for repeated chops into the corner. Storm then fires back with a couple of chops of her own. Athena then tags in. Storm then slams Serena Deeb, but then Athena goes for the splash over the top rope. We get a cover and a 1 count. At this point, Athena is in control over Serena Deeb after that. Athena then drives Deeb to the mat and then goes to the top. Britt Baker goes for the distraction as well. We get a chop block by Serena Deeb. At this point, the heels gain the advantage. Once we're back from commercial break, Athena goes for a dropkick on Deeb. Storm then tags in Athena. At this point, Britt Baker is the legal woman. Shotgun dropkick by Storm on Baker. We get a running uppercut by Storm. Baker then ducks the hip attack. After that, Storm takes out Deeb with the DDT. Baker then goes for the sling blade. Deeb tags in. Athena makes the tag. Both then exchange shots. Athena then goes for a springboard, but then Deeb catches her and applies the cross arm breaker. After that, we get a roll-up by Athena and a near fall. We get a roll-up by Deeb, but Athena hits the Meteora. After that, Storm makes the tag. She goes to the top and hits the crossbody. Then Deeb applies the single leg Boston Crab. After that, we get a kick to the chest of Deeb by Athena. After that, we get a super kick by Athena by Britt Baker, or on Athena by Britt Baker. Then she does the same on Toni Storm. After that, we get a jackknife pin attempt by Serena Deeb on Storm. Then Athena breaks it up. Baker then tries to take Athena to the outside and then sends her to the steel steps. Deeb then sets up the deep tox attempt, but then Rebel is distracting the referee. At this point, Britt takes the chair, and then Deeb then drives Storm onto the chair. We get a cover, and the heels get the win. So, again, Toni Storm getting pinned was absolutely stupid. I know it was, in a way, by the heels they were cheating in the match, but again, it's still really relatively stupid on the fact that Toni Storm, who just won the Women's Championship, got pinned. That was a dumb idea, in my opinion. But then after that, Athena then comes in and takes out Britt Baker, but then Britt has a chair, and then Jamie Hayter comes in and repeatedly hits Storm with the chair. So she hits Storm with the chair, but then leaves. Of course, Jamie Hayter and Kayfabe is still pissed off about what happened in that fatal four-way women's match for the interim championship. If you guys do not recall, when Jamie Hayter tried to go for the pinfall, Britt Baker actually dragged the referee out of the ring. So I love the story that they're telling there. I definitely do see Jamie Hayter definitely splitting from Britt Baker in the near future. We're just going to have to wait and see how they escalate it. But again, even though I'm excited over that, let's be honest, man. The women's division in AEW needs a lot of work. And look, it's not me saying the talent is bad, because you have the talent there. The problem is, and look, I know that they only have legit 3 hours of legit TV, and I'm not mentioning Dark or Dark Elevation. I'm only talking about Dynamite and Rampage. They only got 3 hours of TV. But again, showcase the women more on your show. That's all I'm going to say. Showcase your women more on the show and give them importance. Don't have the women only have like one match on the entire Dynamite show, because that's been a common occurrence throughout, a couple of weeks on Dynamite for the last couple of months now. Like the women would have like one or two matches on the entire show. That's ridiculous in my opinion. Like one thing that WWE definitely does have an advantage of creatively over AEW is the way that they book the women's division. Even though it's not perfect, they showcase the women's division way more than AEW. That's a fact. So yeah, we got the Rampage card. Josh Woods will Josh Woods will face Samoa Joe for the ROH TV title. Samoa Joe is actually the one to defend the television title on Rampage. Ethan Page goes up against Danhausen. Penelope Ford faces Willow Nightingale. And Darby Allin will face Matt Hardy. The card for Grand Slam is Jon Moxley versus the winner of Jericho versus Danielson. Of course, we already know it's going to be Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson in the finals, which is going to be an absolutely banger of a match. The Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory. Toni Storm versus Serena Deeb versus Britt Baker versus Athena for the interim women's championship. And we also got Pac versus Orange Cassidy for the All-Atlantic Championship. So those are 4 title matches. And we got another one that was announced on Rampage, which is Claudio Castagnoli, who will be defending his Ring of Honor World Championship against Chris Jericho, which is actually a match that I'm definitely very interested in. But yeah, that is your Dynamite Grand Slam card. Again, Dynamite this Wednesday is going to be absolutely fucking stacked. And with the rating that AEW pulled this week, there's no question that Grand Slam is going to top that. I cannot see, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I cannot see AEW not topping the rating that they just got. Again, they turned a whole scenario of the whole backstage drama that was going on, and they turned everything from a negative into a positive, because if you really think about it, they kind of turned this whole scenario to their benefit, and they're doing fantastically good ratings right now. I mean, they did a 1.1 this week on TBS, and they're going to do a much higher rating next week at Grand Slam, in my opinion. Now, my prediction is they will do a 1.2. That's just my opinion. We're going to have to wait and see what the actual rating is. But besides the rating, man, that can wait. Grand Slam is going to be a fantastic show. And if you guys look, I'm going to tell you guys, look, if you guys are people watching this channel that do not watch AEW, I definitely recommend you guys to watch AEW this week, because it's a show that you do not, and I mean you do not want to miss. I'm promoting your shit, Tony Khan. I'm kidding, but still, man, Grand Slam is going to be a fire show. All right. We got Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson in the match that will determine who will face Jon Moxley at Grand Slam, it was pretty obvious who it was going to be, considering the fact that Jericho did beat Danielson. Of course, due to controversial circumstances, I believe he hit the low blow on Danielson. But, I mean, Jericho still got the win, so it would make more sense for Danielson to actually get the win, and that was what happened. But Danielson versus Jericho, one thing I will say was this match was far better than their match at All Out. Not to say that their match at All Out was terrible, because their match at All Out was absolutely fantastic. I'm just saying that this match was so much better because, there's a lot more physicality involved, but at the same time, the crowd was more up on their feet, because if you watch their All Out match, the crowd was definitely dead for the majority of the whole match. And that's another scenario of the crowd getting burnt out because of the fact that AEW has ridiculously, and I mean, that's the key word right there, ridiculously long pay-per-views. But again, Danielson versus Jericho was a fantastic match this past Wednesday on Dynamite. So the match starts. We get a couple of chops by Danielson. Then we get a couple of chops and kicks by Danielson into the corner. He sends Jericho to the other corner, followed by a running kick. Both then exchange chops. We get a couple of chops and kicks by Jericho in the corner. We get a running kick by Danielson into the corner, and Jericho gains control. We get a shoulder tackle by Jericho. Jericho then gets taken to the outside. We get a running kick by Danielson, knocking Jericho down. Danielson is up on the apron. He goes for the running knee, and Danielson takes Jericho to the ring post. Jericho then takes Danielson into the ring. Danielson goes to the top, or I should say Danielson, I believe, was the one that took Jericho in the ring. I kind of messed up my notes right there. Danielson goes to the top. He goes for the shotgun dropkick after that. Danielson goes back up. He goes for the flying headbutt after that. Then we get a cover by Danielson and a near fall. Danielson then drives his knee on Jericho. Then we get a kick to the arm of Jericho. He goes for repeated kicks by Danielson. Jericho then ducks and hits the German suplex. After that, Jericho goes for the dropkick, taking Danielson to the outside. Jericho then takes out Danielson with the crossbody onto the outside. Jericho and Danielson at this point are in the ring. He slaps Danielson. Danielson then slaps back, and then both exchange slaps and chops. Danielson then lands on his feet after the hammer throw by Jericho. Jericho and Danielson knock each other with the double crossbody after that. We go to commercial break, and once we're back from commercial break, Danielson is on the top. Jericho then comes in. We get a chop by Danielson. Jericho chops Danielson. Jericho goes to the top, and then we get repeated rights by Jericho, followed by a Hurricane Rana by Jericho off the top, which looked absolutely fantastic. Danielson then ducks the Judas Effect attempt by Jericho. We get a German suplex by Danielson. We get a cover into near fall. At this point during the match, it's back and forth. Danielson then applies the catamutilation submission. Then Danielson transitions into repeated elbows. So he's driving his elbows at this point on Chris Jericho. Jericho then reverses it and hits elbows of his own. So nice there, mocking the Blackpool Combat Club, which is the best faction in wrestling, I might add. Danielson gets it back up on his feet. We get a chop by Danielson and then a chop by Jericho. At this point, it's a fucking chop fest. Both exchange chops. We get a bunch of chops and kick exchanges by Danielson. Jericho then immediately goes for the code breaker. After that, Danielson. So this is awesome. This is probably my favorite portion of the entire match. So we get a code breaker by Jericho, and then out of nowhere, Danielson goes straight for the Buseko knee, and that had a huge pop within the crowd. Jericho at this point is on the apron. Both then exchange chops again. Then after that, Danielson picks up Jericho, but Jericho retreats. Danielson gets taken to the outside, and at this point, I was so scared. A lot of people were scared. So Danielson actually landed. It looked like he landed on his ankle, and he immediately took off his boot. And I saw this tweet, which was absolutely hilarious to me, because it's relatively true. Every time when a wrestler either gets injured in real life or sells the injury, regardless, they get paranoid as shit. And I absolutely agree. Like, I got paranoid as hell because I was like, oh my God, no, Danielson got injured. But no, that was actually not the case. Danielson was just selling it. So Danielson at this point, he gets checked by the doctors. And then Jericho then targets the injured foot of Danielson. And I believe Danielson actually got his boot taken off. Then he takes Jericho into the ring. And then he drives his foot on Danielson onto the ring post repeatedly. So he's targeting the injured foot of Danielson during this portion of the match. Then Jericho applies the figure four on Danielson onto the ring post. After that, we get a chop block by Jericho. Jericho then drops Danielson onto the mat. Jericho then gets Danielson up. After that, Danielson fights back. He hits repeated shots onto the back. After that, we get a kick by Danielson. Danielson once again goes for the Buseko knee, but Jericho catches him and applies the walls of Jericho. And he drives the injured foot of Danielson onto the single leg Boston Crab. Jericho then Jericho drags Danielson back. We get repeated rights by Jericho. Jericho then tries to go for repeated elbows. Then Jericho gets taken into the corner. Danielson then goes for the roll-up pin attempt, and then we get a near fall. Jericho then hits the dragon screw on the knee of Danielson. Jericho applies the figure four submission once again on Danielson. Both then exchange right hands, but then Danielson transitions into the label lock. After that, he targets the face of Jericho. Jericho taps out. Danielson wins the match. It will be Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship this Wednesday night on Dynamite Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe Stadium. I'm fucking excited. What are my thoughts on the finals being Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley? If you guys haven't, and I definitely think you guys have already, but if you guys haven't, watch the Revolution match, bro, watch that shit, because those two guys tore the house down in Orlando, Florida this past March at Revolution. It was a fantastic match, in my opinion. And these guys are going to tear the house down in New York City. I'm telling you, Grand Slam this coming Wednesday is a stacked fucking card. If anybody tells you that Grand Slam is not stacked, they are lying straight to your fucking face. This match is like the creme de la creme. We got like 5 title matches on this show, and this match is going to go a long-ass time. I guarantee it. I see that this match will be maybe like... I assume that this match will probably start at like 9:20. But it's going to be a fantastic match overall. And realistically, who should win? Who should win this match? Honestly, regarding Bryan Danielson or Jon Moxley, if you really think about it, there's no right or wrong. You can literally go any route. You can have Moxley win the match and drop it to MJF, or you can have Danielson drop the belt and, you know, have MJF win. It's realistically, if you think about it, it's a win-win situation for AEW. And you know what? I'm here for it because I live for these fucking moments. This match is going to be amazing. And I said it right here on this show. This match is going to be amazing. The day after this show, we're going to be talking about this match. And I feel like this is going to be a match that we're going to be talking about months, probably years to come. This match is going to be fantastic. And again, whoever wins this match is most likely going to have a lengthy title reign. They're going to have like up till November 19th, which I assume, because my prediction is if Danielson or Moxley wins the AEW World Championship, you are going to be having MJF take that title away from them, and MJF is going to hold that title for a substantial amount of time. It's gonna happen, ladies and gentlemen. It's gonna happen. But overall, man, Dynamite overall was a fantastic show. Of course, it was setting the stage for what is going to be a fantastic show this coming Wednesday night on TBS with Dynamite Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe Stadium. We got five championship matches. We got the main event with Danielson and Moxley, the Fatal 4-Way for the Women's Championship, the ROH Championship on the line with Claudio taking on Jericho, Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaimed, and we also got Pac versus Orange Cassidy for the All-Atlantic title. So it's going to be a stacked night of wrestling, and I'm absolutely excited for this fucking match. But yeah, overall, Dynamite was a great show overall, and it's really getting me excited for the future, and I'm like legit excited because this show is going to be absolutely insane. But overall, great show and great matches. But yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite review from September 14th, 2022. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the Wrestle Havoc podcast is available on audio platforms. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the Wrestle Havoc podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. The link will be in the description below. But as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays from the Wrestle Havoc podcast, signing out.